Hey guys, what's good? Welcome in for the final the final video for 30 books in 30 weeks. I can't believe the journey is complete today. We started this out January 1st, doing this personal development dive into my personal development library. I committed to you all um, 30 weeks of content, 30 weeks of information, takeaways, ahas. Uh, and so today is the final day for that journey. And then starting next week, we're going to move into some truth talks. And that's going to be tackling some sometimes uncomfortable subjects, sometimes all the time, very necessary subjects. But just getting real with it and not sugarcoating things. I think sometimes we try and water things down for the folks in the back of the room. And we just really need to go in and we need to be honest and have really, really truthful dialogue about where we are, how we make decisions, how we operate in this space, in this thing called life. Um, how do you find happiness? How do you secure it once you think you found it? Um, but more importantly, always staying in touch with your personal truth, your reality, and not getting confused by what the world tells you your world, your space, your private thoughts should look like. So that's what we're going to move into next week. But this week um, we're talking about involuntary personal development. And so I'm going to explain what that is. And I thought that this would be a great way to end this 30 weeks is to really talk about the meaning behind personal development. And I've shared with you guys earlier this week about the value that personal development plays. But I think we always think of personal development as a choice. And it's not always a choice. What's up, Steph? It's not always a choice. And so I think when we get really honest about that, we can start growing in different ways and expand our capacity beyond what we thought we could. So as you guys come in, feel free to share the video out. If you're catching it on the replay, either on LinkedIn, YouTube, or here on Facebook, thank you so much for making that investment. My name is Marcy Batiste. For those of you who don't know me, I'm your ultimate power coach, America's #1 reality-based success and recovery trainer, and this 30 weeks has been an absolute delight. It has been, personally for me, some ahas, some really great reminders of some of the things that I've been through, things that I've been able to overcome, and then it's prompted really great conversation with some of my clients about some of their struggles, things that they never thought of as struggles. And so when we talk in the context of personal development, like I was saying, we tend to view personal development as if it's a choice. And I would like to challenge that thought as we move into truth talks for the next couple months, but challenge that thought to understand that life is a personal development journey. And oftentimes, the most powerful lessons are involuntary lessons. So I want to say that again. Life itself is a personal development journey. And some of our most important lessons are involuntary, which means we're constantly developing one way or the other. And so either we succumb to it or we fight against it, we give pushback, but by nature, you're affected, you're impacted, and based on those experiences, those life journey experiences, you begin to develop in certain ways. Some ways are positive, some ways are not so positive. And for those of you who follow me on a regular basis, you know my relationship with domestic violence, being having overcome that experience. That was probably one of the most important personal development experiences I've ever had, and it was definitely voluntary because I did not sign up for that. but it changed my life in a way that forced me to grow beyond what I perceived to be my capacity. And I think oftentimes involuntary personal development, when we stop resisting and start receiving the message out of all the mess, we start clearing the chaos and find some clarity, then we can grow in a way that we didn't even know possible. When I look at my life choices up until that point in April 2012, they were very surface. They were very safe, but not well thought out. I tended to think that the world owed me something, and not from a financial perspective or even a physical perspective, but just that I had reached career-wise a certain level, and so I thought that somehow absolved me of normal life experiences, and that somehow that I should be protected. And what domestic violence reminded me was that we are all one in the same. And I remember walking into the domestic abuse survivors group that I attended at Fresh Start Women's Shelter, Women's Foundation, for the very first time. And when I walked in, even then, I'm a week out of having been beaten, having my door kicked in, held hostage, all this stuff. But for whatever reason, I still had those preconceived notions that the world owed me something. Somehow I should have been above that, and that I didn't belong in that room. And walking into that room and listening to those other women's stories, I was reminded that we are all so much more alike than we are different. And sometimes I think that we can create levels and classes in our head that are not true. We kind of tend to live in a fairy tale land. And so when the physical violence impacted me, and I received that involuntary personal development lesson, I was reminded that we're all kind of operating in this same space, and that the world doesn't owe me shit. That I'm just as vulnerable, I'm just as weak, but at the same time, I'm just as strong. And I was also reminded that from the preconceived notions I had about what a woman in an abusive relationship looks like, that I was way off base. And so that's just one example of a very profound involuntary personal development lesson that I had to learn. But what it did was, because I didn't fight back from it, I didn't deny it, I owned it. I owned my choices in being in relation with this person. I owned the ways that I had taught him how to engage with me. I owned all of that. And because I was willing to receive the lesson, I was able to then move through the healing process, and then from that point, then go into growth mode, and then beyond that, in being able to teach other people how to overcome some of these really traumatic involuntary personal development lessons. And I don't want to minimize the experience for anyone, and I will tell everybody that my situation, my experience with DV, I was very much one of the lucky ones. There were no weapons involved and things like that. I didn't share a home with him. I didn't share children with him. I wasn't reliant upon him financially. So there were a lot of blessings that I was able to also see from my situation, which going into it, I perceived to be a woe is me, a pity party, sitting in the ER, sitting in the courtroom, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, woe is me, poor me. And once I listened to those other women's stories, I was able to find the grace. I was able to find and receive the gratitude. So these, I just, I want everyone to realize, yes, we've been on a 30-week journey through personal development and, rating my personal development library and sharing content and all those things. But I want you guys every single day, when you have an experience, realize it's an opportunity for personal development. You have an opportunity to learn from experiences. You have an opportunity to grow from them. And then when you're blessed to wake up the next morning, you have an opportunity to do things differently than you had in the past. And so that for me is the biggest thing and the biggest gift from personal development, is it gives you tools and puts tools in your toolbox to help you to learn and grow from that going forward, not to repeat the same mistakes. And I know for me personally, until I learned to receive these involuntary personal development lessons as truly life lessons, I didn't grow. I didn't grow. I still maintained the same attitude that I had in the past. And so it took me changing how I thought about life lessons and life experiences in order for me to grow. So keep that in mind as you guys think about personal development. Like I said, for the next couple months, we're going to go into truth talks and really take a deep dive into some conversations that we just need to have. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to share with you guys my personal top 5 from these 30 weeks. And so I'm going to go over the books really quickly. One of my favorites, and it was really hard because I tried to narrow it down to 5, but I had like 9 books laying on the desk, and I really probably should have done a top 10, but I needed to minimize this and keep it simple. So the first one is this book, Crucial Conversations. And for my clients who work with me, we're constantly talking about the importance of being able to communicate, the importance of being able to have high stakes conversations, high emotion conversations, but being able to keep the conversation focused on the issue at hand and not be distracted by the feelings or, being so busy trying to respond that we're unable to receive what the other person's saying. And one of the biggest things from Crucial Conversations is remembering that when you're having one of these high emotion, high stakes conversations, keep in mind that everybody wants to be heard and people want to feel safe in expressing their opinions. And so the best way to have a crucial, awkward, uncomfortable conversation is to make sure that both parties feel safe and respected. So keep that in mind. The second book I chose for my top 5 was the book Dance of Anger. And we invested a week talking about the dance of anger and anger management. And the biggest takeaway I want you guys to walk away with this one is that anger is not bad. It's not bad. It's like an alarm system for you. It's your intuition saying, pump your brakes, stop. I don't feel like I'm being treated well. I feel like I'm being compromised. I feel like this isn't how I want things to go. So Dance of Anger was book number 2. Number 3 is Genius Potential, which is by one of my good friends and one of my mentors, Dr. Will Moreland, and really talks about the everyday genius. And sometimes we make a big deal, and what I loved about this book was this was the first time that I understood that I had genius, and that we all do. And the way he explains it in this book talks about we're all born with a genius. You don't have to be Michelangelo. You don't have to be, Kobe Bryant. You don't have to be Peyton Manning, whatever. We're all born with our own type of genius. It's up to us, however, to develop that skill and expand on that knowledge. And so I chose that book for that reason. The other one I chose was Codependent No More. And I chose this one because I was hugely codependent, but I didn't even know what the word meant when I started my journey several years ago. And so learning what codependency looked like, learning how that manifested itself in my life, learning how being codependent impacted the way I made decisions, the way I built relationships, and more importantly, the way I taught other people how to be in relation with me. So I would do things and then be pissed off about it later. And I don't really have nobody to blame but myself. But I couldn't see that. And it was because I was in this process of people pleasing. And you can't be a people pleaser and still sell out to your own happiness. It just doesn't work that way. And you have to be really comfortable saying, no, I'm going to do what's right for me because it's right for me. Never mind what you feel I need to be doing for you. And you have to have really honest conversations with yourself about that. So Codependent No More was number 4. And number 5 is my first book, Journey to Find Your Butterfly Potential. And I put that one on there because for me, writing that book was freedom. It meant being able to share my truth, plant my feet firmly in my truth, defend it, stand in it, own it, be confident in it, and never mind, realizing that my past experiences impacted me, but they didn't define me. And up until that point, up until I really got serious about receiving personal development lessons, I let things that happened to me define me. And so I began to tell myself a lot of negative messages and a negative self-talk. And so I tried really hard when I wrote that book to share with the readers that there are ways to honor yourself. There are ways to discover your butterfly potential. And that is really that place where you just feel centered in who you are. I'm not the perfect size. I'm not the prettiest woman on the planet. I'm not the sexiest woman on the planet. I'm not the smartest woman on the planet. I'm not a lot of things. But what I am is me. Authentically, transparently, 100% perfectly flawed, God's masterpiece in progress. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. And the other thing that finding your butterfly potential allows you to do is release the need for other people to validate you externally. And you really become your own biggest cheerleader, your own biggest fan. And so that's the reason why I chose to add that book to the list. So those were the 5: Crucial Conversations, Dance of Anger, Genius Potential, Codependent No More, and Journey to Find Your Butterfly Potential. That's my top 5 from our 30 books in 30 weeks. I hope that you guys have gotten something out of this journey. If you've missed any of the videos over the last few months, they're all available on my YouTube channel. The link is in the title with the video. And so I welcome you to pop over to YouTube, thumb through the videos. If you have questions about anything, if you think that coaching is something that would assist you in being able to navigate through some of these challenges, feel free to inbox me. If you have questions, feel free to inbox me. If you have ideas, feel free to inbox me. I'm always an open vessel. I'm open to receive, and I appreciate you more than you possibly know for staying with me for 30 weeks. It's been amazing, and I thank you for being part of the Ultimate Power Team and living life on Mars and staying true to yourself. So stay tuned for the next couple months. We're gonna move into, starting tomorrow, Truth Talks. So I'll see you guys back here on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever you're finding this video at. You'll always be able to find me through all my social media channels, and you can always refer back to my website, marcybatiste.com. Thanks for joining in, guys, and I'll talk to you guys later.